conversation is going to be going from bottleneck to buy-in and how brokers and agencies can reduce HR back and forth. So hold on, I almost clicked advance. There we go. To introduce things, we're going to go into what is behind every bottleneck, why modeling is the breaking point. We'll get into a little bit of how Plansight enables faster decision making. Then Whitney, who is probably one of the first Plansight users ever and has been with us for a long time, is going to give us a real world case study. She's kind of a celebrity inside the Plansight office, but she's been so kind as to join us today. And then we'll open it to Q&A. So to get started, I introduced Steve as the founder and chief product officer at Plansight, and chief marketing officer here, and Whitney Williamson is a producer, formerly account manager, formerly marketing team member at Trucordia. So she's kind of come up through the ranks and is probably one of the most seasoned Plansight users that there is in existence. So we're excited. Okay, so let's get into the introduction. Housekeeping, we already figured out where the comments section was. Thank you everyone for playing along. Kind of fun to see what everyone is experiencing right now in the weather, even though it's kind of like a taboo opener. It was still fun because it's different right now. But there's also a Q&A section that you'll see. So if you have a question that you absolutely want answered, ask that in the Q&A section, and we'll get to those at different times. We've got someone monitoring those that will send those questions to me, so we make sure that we answer those questions. So everyone that's on this call knows that Q4 is tremendous pressure for employee benefits agencies. You're working to a timeline, you're working with a lot of different parties, you're trying to get manage communication across all sorts of different channels, and that creates chaos and pressure. And we're going to talk through today how to look at those bottlenecks in a different way, and how as a company, Plansight has reimagined relieving those bottlenecks and letting agencies be more streamlined. So we'll talk about why renewals slow down at the finish line, and what some ideas are to help that process go more quickly. So it's going to be really, really fun. I want to start. So one other housekeeping item. We do have a couple polls. We've asked a lot of our clients and friends in the industry some of these questions, but we do have some polls, and I would love to get everyone's feedback on these polls. So what will happen is the poll question will go live. You'll see it, I think, in the top right of your screen, and then I'll see all the feedback on those. But the first poll is, in your agency, where does the most back and forth happen today? Is that chasing carrier quotes and data? Is that manual spreadsheet entry and updates? Is that when you get in the room with a client and they start asking what ifs or changing different contribution strategies? Is that internal team loops trying to get things prepared, or is that kind of an all of the above? And Whitney and Steve, you've both worked in the broker agency field. How would you answer this question?
I would say all of the above for sure. Yeah.
Not one that's like extremely painful compared to the others.
Yeah, for me, for me, it's a mix. I think internal team loops is probably the lowest.
Okay.
But chasing the quotes and then the what if scenarios, changing those at the last minute, I think are two of the big headaches. But if I was spreadsheeting everything, it would definitely be, like the spreadsheets, because like I told you, I'm the first one to admit that I made, errors on those a lot back in the day. I'm not that Excel savvy. So for me, that was the biggest one. And I know before Plansight, that was a big headache for Clay. So for anyone that doesn't know, he is a very seasoned broker that I have, had the opportunity to work with for years now. But back in the day, he was having a team quote everything for him, and using, I know that Excel was a big headache, just having that wrong or having to go back in and put it all together if someone wants to see something different. That takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time.
Definitely. Well, the audience echoed your choices. They said 55% said all the above, 25% said chasing carrier quotes and data, 9% said what if requests, and then 9 said internal team loops. 4% said manual spreadsheet entry updates. We're considering that's probably in all the above. So I'll read those off as those come in, but I just like to see that. So let's talk about the bottleneck behind every delay. So in our industry, I've been thinking about this for quite a while as we've been preparing this webinar, and that can be boiled pretty well down to the bottleneck is information transfer. And I'll get into what I mean by that, but information transfer is really simple to explain, but it creates a lot of complex execution. So information exists in one place, and we have to get it to another place. And as an agency, your team gets to play point guard for all of that information. So the first is getting the quotes back from carriers. So it can be a major information transfer bottleneck. First, we have to communicate to the carrier that what we want in the quote and our desired timeline. And then the carrier has to take that information, transform that into their information, their quotes, and send those back to us. And while Plansight doesn't have full control over carrier speed, if Plansight is explained the right way to the carriers that we're working with, it does motivate them to quote faster. And what I mean by that is, as a broker or a marketing team, when you're talking with a carrier and you say, when you submit your quote through this email that comes from Plansight, it gets automatically spreadsheeted unless we decide to exclude it from the presentation. It's going to be in there. That provides a motivation to both use the right link and to do it quickly so that you're further ahead on the spreadsheet. So if it's explained correctly, it can be a motivator when it's communicated properly. So the other thing that Plansight helps with that in getting quotes back from carriers and managing that process, right? It's not just getting them back. It's trying to figure out, do we have all of them back yet? Who hasn't sent them? Who's DTQ'd? And Plansight provides a really nice bird's eye view of all of that per employer. So you just log into the employer, you can see these are the carriers that we have RFPs out to. These are the ones that have DTQ'd. These are the ones that have submitted. These are the ones that we're still waiting on, and it helps you manage that much more easily. And there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained there. Remember, I'm trying to think we had 24% that said that was the biggest bottleneck. Probably some were included in all of the above as well. So the second information transfer bottleneck is the quote to spreadsheet, right? Now you've got the quotes in front of you, and you've got to get them into a different format that you're going to present to your client, right? So that's the next bottleneck, is how do we get that quote quickly into the spreadsheet, make sure that we don't have any errors that we've got in formulas, that we've got all the information correct, that we know when do we even start on the spreadsheet, because now we have all of the quotes back from the carriers. So that creates a bottleneck as well. So we want to look at that piece of the process. So Plansight does all of that behind the scenes. So as quotes come in, the AI pulls the information out of the quote. You have someone do a second check of the information, and it spreadsheets it automatically in a presentation. So that piece of that is very, very easily solved with Plansight. And then the last bottleneck, and this one is actually probably the one that takes the longest timeline, is the what if scenarios with finance and HR. So, this information transfer is from the brains of the HR finance team of the employers that we work with to our presentation for them, right? They're saying, well, we want to change the contribution strategy this year, or we want to change, we want to add this carrier with this carrier. And if it's something that you haven't modeled, that creates this loop that you sit in the room, they say, well, we want to change this. If that's not modeled out, then usually the process is producer takes it back to the marketing team puts together a new presentation, gets it in front of the producer takes it back to the HR and finance person who wanted that. Then hopefully they pass off on it. Sometimes they come back with still other changes. And that loop is, even though it doesn't happen as frequently, that's one that can take 7 days in a process where we have a pretty tight deadline. So we want to get through why that is one of the biggest breaking points. And Whitney, I know you've managed this a little bit. Being one of the original users of Plansight, you know Plansight very well, and your whole team knows Plansight very well. And in one of our conversations, you had mentioned that you'll block out with the right groups 2 hours to get to the final decision. You'll model, because Plansight lets you do this, you'll model everything right in front of the HR and finance team. When they say we want to see this, you go change it in Plansight, make the changes, and now you've got the updated presentation. Can you give us a little bit of information on how that went and how you got to a point where you were comfortable doing that?
A lot of time working in Plansight, and I think so. And this group that we're talking about in particular, it's I'm working. It's the owner that I'm doing this in front of. So it's me, the owner, and his wife, who kind of handles a lot of the financial HR type of stuff. The first year I did their renewal, I did not do that with them, and there was a lot of back and forth. And now each renewal, I just know I'm going to block out a couple hours. We're going to sit down. We're going to look at, their small employer. So we will sit and look at every option they have, what it looks like if we change contributions, if we don't, but we just change plan design. And then you can even take it a step further with, what does it look like to the company if we add basic life? If we add, critical illness, all these things. So you're able to show them how many options they really do have, and not just with their renewal, with becoming, offering more competitive benefits so they all that stuff, you're able to do in real time with them, and it's quite the time saver for me in the long run to do it that way with them. And then I think honestly, it makes the client feel so important when you're willing to sit and show them, all these different options. And it's easy to say, oh, that takes so much time during fourth quarter, but Plansight makes it easy to show all of those different scenarios where it's not taking me, hours to build this out and go in and change this or that. Mm-hmm. And I do, there are some of them that will say, oh, I'm so sorry, I've asked you to change that or look at this. And I'll just tell them, no, with Plansight, it's easy. That's not a killer to do. You're not inconveniencing us to want to do that.
Yeah. There's actually an interesting story there. You mentioned Clay. Clay was the broker for one of our investors in Plansight. And when he was looking at investing in Plansight, he called Clay, and Clay said, oh, I actually use Plansight. And he'd actually used it in a meeting with this person, and the person said, oh, is that the thing that when I asked for the changes here, you got it out and made those changes? And that was kind of a small world situation. But okay, so I want to go over why modeling and spreadsheeting are the breaking points that we have the most control over, right? We can manage carrier conversations well, and we can get better at that, and we can make sure that we have our to-do lists and our timelines as tight as possible there, but we don't have complete control over that. And it's also one that if carriers aren't meeting our timelines, certain carriers aren't meeting our timelines, in a lot of situations, we can still move forward. But if our presentations, our spreadsheets, and our contribution models are not dialed in the way that we want them to, those are the ones that we have full control over. And those are also the ones that if they're not done exactly right to our full control, that they block the process even more. So I want to talk through a familiar scenario with getting things over the finish line. And Whitney, you just kind of outlined this, but you get in the room with let's say 2 or 3 presentations that you think are going to be best for this employer that you're working with. They all of a sudden decide, well, actually, we want to change our contribution strategy. It's probably one of the most common variables. What if we decided that we wanted to change our employer contributions, right? And if it's something that you haven't modeled, then you automatically introduce a loop. That these loops they're not super complex, but they're occurring at a really complex time of year. So thinking about the loop that gets introduced, getting that back to your marketing team and getting it back in front of the HR or finance person, it's not really that big of a loop. But then when you think of all of the macro level things that are going on in a business in Q4, that head of finance, that head of HR, they're also working on their budgets, their headcounts for the next year and getting those approved, right? They've got a lot that's going on there. It's happening in October, November, December, hopefully well before December, but you've got holidays that start to creep in. You've got family that's coming into town. It's a really common time when people are sick. So you get this loop that ideally doesn't exist. We all want to have the right scenario modeled when we get in the room with a client, but that we don't always have. And just to get that communication loop done seems easy, but then when you introduce all those macro things, those are a lot of things that extend and push us up against deadlines. So that's where you talked about, Whitney, and the ideal scenario would be that whatever what if situation they came up with in that conversation, you could just model real time and say, okay, here's what this contribution strategy looks like, or here's what it looks like to include this carrier with this carrier. Now, sometimes people are really tied to their carriers. So this is what this bundle looks like, or here's what it looks like to change our enrollment strategy, right? So all of those things can be modeled very quickly using Plansight, and ideally when done correctly. So Steve will walk through this in a minute, but the ideal scenario is either have the producer be able to do that, or, a lot of meetings happen virtually now. Having someone on the marketing or account management team on the call as well that can model those in the background. That's what Steve is going to show, so that you can just get to the decision in that meeting, reduces 5 to 7 days from this timeline when it happens at this time of year. So I wanted to ask this question: how often do plan changes add delays to your renewal timeline? Again, this is the poll that will be up in the I think top right hand corner. I have not been the viewer on the webinar. This is me hypothesizing where I think it's going to be. So you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here. But so rarely 0 to 25% of the time, sometimes 25 to 50%. So just answer that. I'm interested in seeing what everyone's got to say there. So once that poll closes, I will let everyone know. So we've got 75%. Oh, it's changing still. 70. Okay. Still changing. I'll tell everyone in just a second. Okay. Looks like we're slowing down. So we've got 60%. The majority say frequently, 50 to 75% of the time. We've got 5% that say rarely, 0 to 25% of the time. We've got 31% that say sometimes, 25 to 50% of the time. And we've got 10% that say almost every renewal, 75 to 100% of the time. So there's a lot of changing that's happening in there. And as we've talked to producers, it's one of their biggest frustrations is when they get in the room, they've got 2 or 3 presentations that they can share with the client, and none of them ends up being the route that the client decides they want to take, right? So Whitney and Steve, in your time in the industry, what have been some of your experiences there?
Well, I wanted to mention something, and to be safe, I actually checked the viewer list to make sure my dad wasn't on here. I got into this business many years ago, and my dad got me into the business. And one of the things that he taught me very early on, which I did not listen to very well, is he's like, never bring a computer to the meeting. Because if you bring the computer to the meeting, they're going to expect that you have all the answers. You want to be able to say, oh, go figure that out. Now, I didn't really listen to it. I really got into my spreadsheets, and I would, somebody wanted to see something different or do something different. I had a bunch of complicated formulas, and I would usually just try to sit down and model it right there and get those decisions made. And sometimes I had egg on my face because I broke a formula, something screwed up, and I'd have to kind of reverse engineer what I did, but it would happen to me all the time. I mean, you go out with your best guess of here's what we think, here's what you have, here's what we recommend. And they're going to like some variation of it, but usually you've got to recombine things, remodel things, just change things. In an ideal world, they would all just listen to us, right? But at the end of the day, it's their business, it's their employees, and they're trying to do the best for them, and it's their decision. But it's almost all the time. You'll go out with something, and either, hey, you have the ability to fix it there, or you got to call somebody. Can you update this? Send me a new version of it. So Plansight, we can help you model that stuff really quickly on the fly. And I know, maybe in the beginning you might not have the confidence to do that right away, but we have the tools to do it. So What were you going to say, Whitney? I saw you laugh because you've met my dad.
Well, no, I agree with that. And I think, we've seen some really high renewal seasons. So I think plan designs are now becoming a strategy to control costs as well, which is, I think that makes it so we're seeing more and more employers want to look at different, plan changes. They want to see how much money it could save them if we're bumping deductibles a little, or if we're, what adding a pharmacy deductible in does, all sorts of things. So I think it's becoming more and more common as, the cost keeps climbing. And I'm not an Excel wizard like you, Steve. So I would not be having a great day trying to do some, Excel on the fly for sure.
Oh, there were many bad days when I couldn't do it. I'd be like, well, I'm going to go back and rebuild this the way that you want to see it. Yeah.
That's top social anxiety for me, trying to Excel while people watch me.
Well, that's so we're going to go through how Plansight makes that process easier. Steve's going to show it in real time, but a couple things that really help this is all of the formulas are on the back end. So that means it's not, did I copy this formula over to this column? It's as long as I change them in the right place and had the input correct the first time, everything that I change in terms of modeling stays, right? I didn't break a formula. I just changed, these are the employer contributions, and that automatically updates. So that eliminates rebuilds and reentry because you can do it real time. And again, if producers don't get to the level that they can do this on their own, because a lot of what's happening is happening virtually, there can be a team member that knows the product well enough to do this. And in those scenarios, we save, again, we have to think of the macros to this. We save a lot of the chaos that occurs because we're trying to coordinate with everyone's schedules in a really busy time of year. And it also creates a consistent workflow across teams. I was on with a broker this morning, and he mentioned, we have one marketing team member that does all of this for our whole team. And if she's sick, if she's not in, this isn't something he said, but if she decided to quit, then all of her information lives in spreadsheets instead of in a system where someone could pick up and keep going. So that consistent workflow across the team is super valuable. Okay, so this next question is fun. So it's, how confident are you in live modeling scenarios with HR and finance? So whether you're doing that in spreadsheets or whether you're doing that in Plansight, or if you're not the one that's in the meeting with HR and finance, I'm going to pose this question a little bit differently. If you're on the marketing team or account management team, how confident are you in your producers' live modeling scenarios with HR and finance? So if you're the producer, how confident are you in doing it? If you are not the producer, how confident are you in your producers doing it? So, and then as those come in, I will let everyone know. All right, we've got a few votes. I'll let those come in so I don't keep trying to change it, but we'll give it like 10 more seconds and then I'll give the answers here. All right, so we have the lion's share of the vote at 66%, at somewhat confident. Oh, it went down to 60%. Somewhat confident. I'd try it with the right tool. 27% not confident. I prefer my marketing team handles it. And 8% never tried it. I only use static spreadsheets. We have 0% that said very confident. I do it now. So this is the situation where if we can cut that last part of the decision-making process down and get people either somewhat confident, I try it with the right tool, or very confident, I do it now, and get them to decisions faster and just cut that back and forth out that occurs at the most busy time of year for people who are trying to get in on those decisions, we would cut a tremendous amount of the chaos out of Q4. So we already determined based on the previous poll that it's happening 50 to 75% of the time for most people, and that 50 to 75% of the time is usually going to be happening at a time when people are not really easy to get a hold of. So that introduces that bottleneck. That's, like I said, it's not a really complex communication loop to say, marketing team, I need this modeled, and marketing team to get that back. It's a complex thing to build in with the macro level things that are going on in, okay, marketing team, someone was sick, so that took a little bit longer, or they had this thing happen, so that took a little bit longer, or they had family in town. Now they got it back finally, and I got to get on the schedules with HR and finance, right? So those macro pieces are really what creates that chaos, because those are the pieces we don't have as much control over. So if we can get it to a point that we are getting to decision at the very first meeting, then we're cutting a lot of the chaos out at the busiest time of year, and you will definitely feel that pressure. And Whitney, you've done it with Clay, with yourself. When you can get to that decision and not have to go through that back and forth, you're saving tremendous amounts of time. I'm not going to steal your thunder and talk about how many accounts you managed yet. That's on a future slide, but you're able to do crazy high volumes of account management, which we'll get to. And
another thing I think it's important to keep in mind is this, the timeline of all of this stuff moving, it affects everyone on your team, not just, our AMs, but our service teams, our implementation teams, keeping, and I've learned that the hard way too, but the sooner we get everything done and we're able to follow the set timelines that we're projecting, it's better for everyone. You don't want anyone having a bunch of last minute work kind of dumped on them, or trying to last minute get everything done. So it's well-being of the team is important.
Definitely. Okay, so we're going to jump into a demo from Steve. This is going to be a quick demo. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let him share his screen. Just know at the end of this webinar, there will be a QR code and a link that you can scan that will take you through an even more in-depth walkthrough that you can kind of walk through Plansight on your own and see all the pieces of it. But keep that in mind as Steve shares. This is just going to be kind of brief overview of how this would work. So take it away,
all right.
Steve.
I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to take myself off because
Steve, they can't hear you when you're off stage. So.
Okay. You hear me now?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen here and I will click. I jumped off stage because I have to look the other direction. This is where Plansight really shines. Every benefit is presented in a consistent side-by-side format that makes it easy to tell a clear story. You can show current plans, renewal options, and alternatives all in one place without jumping between tools. And when the what ifs come up, which they always do, you're not rebuilding spreadsheets or redoing math. You're adjusting the model and everything updates automatically. Instead of spreadsheets and breakable formulas, each benefit comes with its own built-in modeler. That's what makes it easy to answer contribution and enrollment what ifs in real time. Plansight allows you to model the current benefits based on the decisions that were made the prior year. This is the benchmark for all other scenarios. Proposed contributions can be modeled independently, allowing you to manage all of the what ifs. Apply the same strategy to all future alternatives or model each quote independently. You can also do the same with the census. If your client wants to know what happens when someone moves to a different plan or enrollment fluctuates based on different contribution strategies, Plansight can help you manage that easily. Let's jump over here to dental. You can manage contributions by dollar amount or percentage, including buy up and buy down options. The client presentation reflects contribution changes at every level. Each benefit type generates its own contribution pages for medical, dental, and vision, while also rolling everything into a single combined budget. As you make changes in the modeler, all of these pages update automatically, showing the total cost, employer budget, and employee budget together. In this very simple example, I have made one small adjustment to the way the employer covers the cost of dependents on the dental plan. The changes are driven to the contribution page for the dental renewal. With a small change to dental, the entire budget updates automatically, just like that. Now let's jump back into the application and look at how you can control and compare multiple full budget scenarios for your client. You've already seen how everything rolls up into a full package in the presentation. Now let's look at how you actually control that package and create different versions of it. Current benefits are built automatically. Renewal benefits are also automatically combined, and all the cost sharing is based on the modeling you controlled per benefit type. You have the capability to create custom combinations to recommend to your client. Easily edit the combinations to quickly rebuild budgets. Choose an alternative from quoted options. You can see the entire budget has been updated based on the new selection. It's easy to create new alternative packages with only a few clicks. Now I have a copy of the package on the left. Let's quickly make an edit. Let's pick Blue Cross. Now we have two alternative packages to present to our client. Let's jump over to the presentation to see what that looks like. Each column in the benefit builder is represented in the presentation. Packages get elected, and you start again next year with your renewal cycle, with chosen packages already configured as your current benefits. Now, it's a pretty simple example of how that works, but you can see any changes that you're updating, you don't have to go rebuild, reconfigure, refigure out the formulas. Everything just flows through into these combinations. Now, I'm not entirely sure how to stop sharing. I think I did it.
You got it. Okay. So again, this can be one of two things. This can be a producer doing this if they get comfortable enough in Plansight, or it can be someone on the team doing that in the background and the producer just hitting refresh and those presentations being completely updated. So I want to get over to Whitney. Right? I mentioned earlier that Whitney is kind of like a Plansight legend. So let's go through some of this data. So Whitney managed 178 accounts as an account manager. I think you told me 98% retention on that, Whitney.
Yeah.
Plus,
that's like such a badge of honor for me. I'm over here like so excited about it. But yes, there was a lot at once going on.
Yeah. So you've gotten to the point where you can manage that many, retain really well. I think we talked expansion as well. You quoted on every single one of those additional products.
Yeah. Unless they had specifically told me they did not want to see additional lines would be, shown to them.
Yeah. So walk us through that year, right? So this happened because of an acquisition, right? You acquired an additional book of business. That's why you ended up with 178 in a year to manage.
Yep. We took on an acquisition, and at this time, we were set up in a way where we had one producer going out and getting new business, and Clay and I were retaining everything. So Clay had the majority of, our complex, larger accounts. I had a few, and then I was given anything basically under 50 lives I had. And so it's easy to say, oh, well, smaller groups are easy, but sometimes that smaller group, you're with a very particular owner, you're working directly with him. He doesn't have, help. It's just him, and he's particular, and he wants to see every scenario out there. And it's so easy to quote in Plansight. I really wouldn't have been able to do it without Plansight. And of course there would be groups coming back to me. There was a day I remember I got, 13 of them out, and one group came back more than once wanting to see other things. And when you're able to do that, you're not worrying about formulas, having to put a presentation together. It does it all for you. You can, show them 4 different plan designs and get that back to them in 5 minutes. You can handle it in just the response time of an email. So that's kind of how I was tackling it at that time. And then Plansight kept me, organized. You can see who you've quoted, who's seen it, who's opened it. And then probably one of my favorite things about using Plansight is it shows your clients you're doing the work you're supposed to be doing for them. It's a heck of a lot easier to go to a group that has a 27% increase and show that to them when you can see you've sent it to everyone possible and it's declines. That it's so much easier to break that news when they do see, hey, she is doing what she's supposed to do for me. This isn't just this is what you got, you're stuck because she doesn't want to do her job. It creates a lot of transparency with carriers, clients, and the team internally.
Yeah, definitely. And that'll be something that you can see if you walk through the demo, that there'll be a link for at the end, just like a self-guided demo through it. But yeah, like you said, the presentations are built really thoughtfully to make sure that your clients know the work that you're doing there and walk them through why you've made the recommendations that you have. So
And they look very nice too, which I think is important because everyone wants to feel like, you know, their broker is putting a lot of time and effort into, you know, what the plan options we're presenting. Because it's easy to say, oh, they're just employee benefits, but it's not. It's part of compensation. You know, these are people's families, their healthcare. It's important.
definitely. Okay, so the last question is, well, the last poll question that we have is, how much stress would be removed from your Q4 if you could cut the 5 to 7 days of trying to get to that final decision out of your renewal process with, we said it's happening 50 to 75% of the time. How much of the chaos and stress would be removed from Q4 if we could cut that out of that 50 to 75% of the book of business? And then, you can read through the answers. Maybe you already have the perfect process and the answer is none. Congratulations. Or, we just want to hear how much stress that would relieve, unless they just load your book up like Whitney's to 178 accounts, but probably didn't relieve any stress to have that many, but would have been more stressful if you didn't have that capability.
Yeah, it would have taken a lot more time. That's for sure.
All right, so it looks like the majority are saying high impact, roughly 50% less stress. Low impact, 18% said low impact, roughly 25% less stress. And then total game changer, I'd get my weekends back, 25%. So a pretty good split there. So the reason that we want to look through this, remember, we're identifying bottlenecks in this industry are primarily data transfer. It's data transfer from carriers to our agency, from having that data in quotes with our agency to a spreadsheet, from that spreadsheet possibly to a put together presentation. So we're looking at, and then that presentation to the client, sometimes client back to new presentation. All of those data transfers, we're looking for ways to streamline it. And I've got to give props to Steve. I've worked in quite a few tech companies, and Steve has really thoughtfully put together the way that Plansight solves a lot of that data transfer. So I want to open some time up. We're getting close to time, and I want to give some time for Q&A. So there were a couple questions. One already that was, is this being recorded? And the answer is yes, it is being recorded and will be sent out. And then the other one was in the Q&A that told Steve that his microphone was really sensitive, but it seems like that's solved primarily. If you've got questions, put those in the questions channel, and then we will get to those. So give that a few seconds if you've got some questions. So I've got some questions for Whitney while we're waiting for those to come in. So you were with Magellan, now Tricordia, before Plansight, and adopted Plansight really early on, probably one of the first 1 or 2 customers with Plansight, and have stayed with Plansight for now the last 6-7 years. What were you using before, and what does that process look like for you to go through all of that with Plansight?
So originally we were quoting in Rate Factory and then, copying and pasting into Excel to make it look nicer. Mm-hmm. And so that was where at this time I was on service team, very new to the industry. Like, I was a personal trainer. I knew nothing about insurance, Mm-hmm. And I know that I messed up quite a few presentations for Clay, because Excel formulas or, that kind of thing would get messed up. And now that I'm on, this side of it, nothing is worse than having to go back to a group and telling them, like, I presented you incorrect rates.
Mm-hmm.
No one likes to hear that, especially because I don't know why, but it always ends up being, more than what you showed them. It's never a good surprise.
Yeah.
So when we made the switch to Plansight right as I was going to account management, I want to say, or maybe Clay was using it before. And yeah, it was just, it was a game changer on the amount of time quoting took. And then I also was very forgetful and like on who I had sent it to.
Yeah.
So I would have to go back into my emails because, of course, like any producer is going to ask, hey, have you seen something from Cigna? Have you seen something from Motive? They want to show everything. That's something that Clay's very big on is, we need to be showing every carrier.
Yeah.
So, when he's coming to me, hey, Whit, where's a quote from so-and-so? And I have to go in your email and search, oh, I didn't send it. And that's also the worst, oh, sorry, didn't send it to them at all.
Yeah.
And in Plansight, it's just a click.
Yep.
And you can easily see who you sent it to, who's seen it, who's downloaded it. It's a lot of transparency. And that, like I said earlier, that makes it easier on everybody involved.
Yeah.
It's easy to look at a group and see exactly where you're at with it.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the best parts about it. So this question is actually for you, Whitney. And you may not remember this for yourself, but I know you're training a lot of people in Plansight. But the question was asked, hi, I'm curious how long it took you to feel comfortable and really get the hang of using Plansight's features and tools to create presentations. So yeah, let's talk through that. Like if you can remember about yourself, great. If not, then training your new account management team members.
I don't feel like it was super long for me. I mean, and Plansight, that you guys have added a lot more stuff to it. When we first started, it was pretty, simple. Now you can get very into the weeds with it. I would say if you committed like, hey, the next couple months, I'm going to dive into Plansight, you could be solid. And your team, the Plansight team is very great about training. So they really will help you. They'll answer your questions. If you can't figure something out, they're more than happy to help you. No one's ever going to make you feel, stupid for asking the same question or needing something explained. So I would say if you say, the next 6 weeks, I'm going to take some time every day and mess around in Plansight, you'd be a pro.
Awesome.
Unless
it's pretty unrecognizable from early days, I would say, Whitney. So we put a lot of processes in, and the truth is, it's from feedback from good folks like yourself. Hey, we needed to do this. We need, we're constantly evolving, and that'll never stop. So, thank you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and no, thank you guys.
So, Steve, this question's for you. It says, can you do complicated contributions like increased contributions based on years of service?
Yeah, we can. So you can class out contributions. We are working on some things to where we want to make it even easier to do this year. So you're able to do those, if you had same plan, different levels of contributions that you might want to apply, you can do that in the system now. But we're constantly evolving, and we've already mapped out some really, really slick ways to be able to do that we're hoping to release this year too, to make it even easier.
Awesome. Okay, so I put a screen up here. If you scan this, or we'll put in the chat also a link to this self walkthrough. You can either scan this and you can walk yourself through a demo of Plansight, and you can click around and see what the things do, or we'll add a link in the chat. It should be there, and it is best on the computer, so preferably. And if you're on your phone, great. Scan that. But it looks best on the computer. So the link in the chat will also take you to a self-guided demo. You don't have to jump on with the sales rep. You can just look exactly what it does. And it's a small group demo. We do have a lot of large group capabilities as well. At the end of that, if you're like, actually, I do want to see more, I want to run this with my own documents and see how the AI works for my documents, or ask certain questions, there's a form at the end of that, and you can schedule a custom demo there. But feel free to scan that or click on that link and walk yourself through it. And then if anyone has any questions, you can reach out there and request a demo. We're happy to jump on and show anyone what this does. But I don't see any more questions in the Q&A. So wrapping up, thank you everyone for joining us. Plansight is the only end-to-end RFP process solution that's designed with AI to make your RFPs and renewals fast, consistent, and accurate. So we appreciate everyone for taking time out of their day. And if you have questions, Whitney's also volunteered. If anyone has questions or would like to hear from her, feel free to reach out to us, and we can put you in touch with her, and how she's learned to use the software. That's very gracious of her. But we appreciate everyone joining. Hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and be better tomorrow than you were today.